Alright guys, we're going to get into doing the carburetor synchronization. So you're going to need the tool. You're going to need the auxiliary tank. So I'm going to have to plug the auxiliary tank into here. I got gas, some 93 octane, and safety first. It's kind of the other thing too. My white car, I've got a fire extinguisher in it, and this black car, never know what this thing is going to do. So it's kind of my ace in the hole in case the car catches on fire somewhere. It's definitely cheap insurance. Years ago, I had the fuel pump go out in my white car, and it almost caught on fire for me trying to start it. So it's definitely, it's not a good feeling to see smoke coming from under the hood and having no way to put a fire out. So for the cost of getting a fire extinguisher, well worth it. Okay, so you're going to want to warm the bike up and get on the rear stand. We'll start hooking up the auxiliary tank and get the vacuum gauge on there. So down here you've got the 4 different tubes that you're going to hook the gauge up to. So what I have to do first, I'm going to grab the tube going to the number 1 cylinder, and the tool has this branch that brings them all together because we're going to have to synchronize the tool first. So we're going to get everything hooked up here. I'm going to show you how to synchronize the tube. Then we got to shut it down and hook up each individual vacuum line to each individual cylinder. So then what's going to happen too is between the carbs, it's going to be kind of hard to see on video, but you've basically got 3 adjustment screws that sit between the carbs. So the first screw changes the balance between cylinders 1 and 2. The third screw over here changes the balance between cylinders 3 and 4. And then that screw in the center is going to balance the cylinders in a pair. So that'll be easier to understand when I get this going. So yeah, we're going to get the fuel tank hooked up and get this thing fired up. Alright, so to hook up the auxiliary tank, I just went to the hardware store, and like in the plumbing section you can find these different fittings. So this is 5/16 inside diameter to 1/4 inch. So when you buy that auxiliary tank, you get like an on-off valve and some little hose clamps. I didn't use any of that stuff. I'm just going to ram these tubes together. I mean, it's not a perfect fit, but it definitely seals up enough so it's not leaking anywhere. So I'm going to install that fitting, and then we'll fill up the auxiliary tank with gas. Alright, got the line hooked up. Got the fuel in the auxiliary tank. She actually cooled off quite a bit, so I'll probably get it up to like maybe 160 before going any further. Just let it sit here and warm up. Alright, we're up to 162, so I'm going to shut it down and hook up the gauge. Alright, so with the gauge too, you're going to need these adapters. So basically I'm just going to screw in, not really screw in, but just hook up the vacuum hose from the bike on here and then hook it to the gauge. Right now I'm just going to do one because we've got to sync the, we got to level out that gauge. Alright, so you got the adjustments here. Got a flathead screwdriver. This is all goofed up because stupid me left this in the garage over the winter time one year, and that fluid is basically water based, so it ended up cracking, and one of my co-workers was nice enough to goop it up and fix it for me. Should probably get a new one, but like I said in a previous video, I already did this before, so it worked out really great. I mean, I'm really excited with the results. So for now it seems to be working. So what you want to do is make sure these are backed out all the way. So just take your screwdriver and just make sure they're backed out. Don't go gorilla. I mean, this thing's plastic, it's really fragile, so it's not going to take much. Just once you back it up, just let it go. You don't have to crank on it. So I'm gonna fire up the bike and get this synced up. You want to start it up? crack it with my head. When you spin it clockwise, it's going to bring the fluid level up. You want to try to get them equal. So I got them pretty much equalized. And maybe get a little closer. The other thing, there's actually like these little fittings that go into the air lines. Do you remember where those go? Are they on the... I think they're on this side, aren't they? If I remember correctly, you put them on this end of the hose. So what I'm going to do now is disconnect this. And yeah, they're right in there. You have to get the right size fittings for your bike. I want to say it's 6 mil for the Yamaha. Don't quote me on that, I can't remember. But those little, they almost look like a little ferrule. And supposedly I think they're supposed to smooth out the gauge. It makes it a little more even. So don't forget to put those in there. So now I gotta disconnect all these lines, get the rest of these ready to go, and basically just hook it up. So let me do that and I'll show you. So I don't know if you can see that little insert's in there. So that is on the side that connects to the carbs.
Oh, okay, I see it. Okay.
Alright, so you got them hooked up. You know, you want to make sure that you've got the correct tube to the correct cylinder. You know, from the left side of the bike to the right side of the bike, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So you got just numbered the hoses, makes it a little bit easier. So now, the other thing I should have mentioned too, when you're getting this initially set, like, start the bike and be ready to shut it off, because if it can actually suck the fluid out of there. So if the fluid just keeps going up and up and up, just shut the bike down and make your adjustments on here to get it back down. And so, yeah, we're all set to fire this thing up. Go ahead and hit it. I got the kill switch on. Flip that red switch down. There you go. So this is kind of interesting because I just synchronized these carbs maybe a week or two ago. They're that far out, but I did make a pilot jet adjustment too, so I was actually kind of curious about that, what was going to happen. Now, I don't know if that's the pilot jet adjustment doing that or not. It's definitely possible, but now we're ready to get this synchronized. Take the camera.
focus on what you're doing or that?
Well, I just watch the gauge. Right now I'm doing cylinders 3 and 4, turning it clockwise to get this column to go up. Now if I turn it counterclockwise, the cylinder 3 will come up. Got that pretty close. Now I gotta try to get 1 to 2. Doing 1 to 2 now. Get those close. Look pretty good. So now, this was the far left screw for these two. The far right side screw was for these two. Now the center screw is going to balance 1 and 2 to 3 and 4. Pretty close. Give it a shot of 10 gauge. Getting up to like 195, so I'm actually going to shut this down and let it cool down a bit before I make the final adjustments. It's pretty close though. You can see that's probably actually not that bad.
Compared to what it was, yeah.
So the other thing too, when I first did the synchronization, I actually took the airbox off. So, and it's a lot easier. Like, it's taken me a long time because it's really hard to get in here. You know, I got to pull that leg up. You know, to do 1 and 2, I'm trying to get in here. Trying to get, you know, right by the fuel log between the two carbs, you know, to do 3 and 4, trying to get between here. And then you probably heard as I'm trying to get the screwdriver on there, it's actually moving the throttle blade and the throttle is surging a little bit. So then the adjustment between the two pairs is in the center here, and you're trying to get in and get in from there. So I mean, I'm trying to like look through right here. You can barely even get any light in there, but you know, it's not impossible. It's like everything else with this bike. It's just time consuming. So I'm gonna let this thing cool down, see if I can get a little bit closer. I'm actually shocked they were that far off, 'cause, I mean, the bike's been running really good. But yeah, we'll see. Let this thing cool down. Alright, so the bike cooled down, 171. Other thing, that low fuel light's going to keep flashing because you've got it disconnected from the tank, so it's nothing to worry about. Let's see if we can get this finished up.
There you go. Yeah. Give it a little, just a little. Get cylinder 3 down a little bit. There you go. Got a little putter to it. About $4 grand. It's usually where you're cruising at. That looks real good. Yeah.
Alright, I think we're good.
Okay.
Alright, so to make the adjustment, I'm just using this Phillips head screwdriver. And this thing's pretty small to sneak in there between the carbs. So yeah, the other thing to take into consideration, you know, I swapped the coils out on this bike. I had the old coils in there when I did the original carb sync, so you know, it could be the coils, everything. I watched a video of a guy synced up carbs, and he was saying he'll sync his carbs and then, you know, run it for a couple weeks and sync them again. You know, sometimes you've got more carbon buildup in one cylinder than another, so they'll kind of fall out of sync again. So I mean, to me, this definitely falls into the mandatory department, you know, making sure that everything's synchronized. It just makes it so much better riding the bike to have it, you know, you're providing inputs and it's responding appropriately versus, you know, trying to fight the bike. The other thing that really impressed me was just how much easier it is to clutch the bike out. You know, especially with those old coils, it's like I'd be trying to pull away from a light and the bike's just falling all over itself, and then it would jump up in RPM, and you know, you look like someone who doesn't know how to ride a bike at that point in time. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go through those coils next. We'll show you what happened with that. But yeah, it's turned out really good. So then now, like I said before too, I would try doing this with the airbox on. It's more of a pain, like it's a lot harder to see the adjustment screws, but it's not impossible. Probably the hardest adjustment is cylinders 1 to 2. You know, it's kind of hard getting in here, but you know, it's not impossible. So yeah, we'll get this all disconnected and get those vacuum lines plugged up again. Should be good to go. Alright, so disconnected the auxiliary tank and just, you know, let it drain back into the gas can. Last thing you got to do is loosen all these adjustment screws, so the next time you do it, and you want to adjust it every time you do it. You want to zero that gauge out every time you do a sync. So I just got to back these out, and you know, like I said earlier, be careful. It's very fragile, so don't go gorilla on that stuff.